Hello everybody, it's Sarah, and today it's the 1st of September as we're filming this. I hope I'm gonna get around to uploading this today. But anyway, that means that today it is time to talk about my August reading, which, not gonna lie, I felt I was doing better at, because I had like a couple of phases where I was actually reading quite a lot. However, now looking at my stats, I still only read 6 books, so yeah, that's fun. Anyway, I read 6 books in August, as I just said, and a total of 2,250-ish pages. The moods that I had were adventurous, emotional, dark, tense, mysterious, and funny. The pacing was half of the books were medium paced, 1 was slow paced, and 2 were fast paced. By the way, as always, the stats are as according to Storygraph. Then page number, I had a third over 500 pages, a third under 300 pages, and a third between 500 and 300 pages. I only read fiction books in August. Genres were fantasy, queer or LGBTQIA, horror, short stories, romance, historical, and contemporary. Formats, I read 4 books physically and 2 books digitally. And then in terms of reviews, I did not rate all books. I believe one of the books I didn't give a rating. However, I had one 1.75 star, one 3.5 star, one 4 star, one 4.75 star, and one 5 star, which in fact I believe was a reread. Right. And then in terms of general inclusivity stats, which as always Storygraph doesn't give me, I have 4 books that were queer or had queer main characters or POV characters. Then I had, I'm not quite sure about one of them, but I had at least 1 book that was by a BIPOC author. And then in terms of disability stats, 1 book, I'm not sure if I would count it as disability rep, however it is definitely terminal illness rep. I don't know how to put it. 1 mental health rep, and then the other 2 I would not say had anything, or the other 4. And so with all of that said, let's get into the books that I read, and let's as always start with a reread, which it has taken me almost 2 months to finish. I don't know why, because I do love and adore this book. And the reread that I had, which I started in June, was The Queens of Inishlia by Tessa Gretton. This is a retelling of Shakespeare's King Lear, and so it follows 3 sisters. You have, what are they called again? You have Elia, who is a star priestess and the youngest daughter of the king. You have the second oldest, Regan, who is a witch keeping to the old ways of the country that everyone's living in. And then you have Gaela, the oldest, who very much wants to be the future king. And for those of you who do not know the story of King Lear, it's about a king who's kind of slowly going mad, who tells the sisters, or who tells his children, the one who can convince him that they love him the most will be the future ruler of the kingdom. And so the 2 older sisters who don't actually love him, who in fact hate him, tell him they love him, while the youngest one, who actually loves him, refuses to take part in this game, for which the king then exiles her. And that is also the setup of this story. I'm not sure, I do think I might have a really old review of this. I read this first in 2019, which I don't remember if I already did reviews of pretty much all the books written by women and genderqueer authors, because Tessa Gretton is genderqueer. But yeah, if I have a review, I will leave it linked down below. Back then, I gave it 4.5 stars, but on reread, I just had to give it 5 stars. I actually had, like, this is, I think, the second book, the second reread this year where I did this. I absolutely loved and adored this. This is an incredibly slow book. Like, do not go into this expecting action-packed. It's an incredibly slow book following the three sisters. It's incredibly introspective. There's also a handful of other side characters that get POV chapters, and it very much is character exploration to a T. And it's... I had read this before, okay? I had read this before. The first time, I don't know why I didn't realize that it was a retelling of King Lear. Maybe I actually did know, but I was still like shocked Pikachu face when like it turned into more and more of a tragedy. This time again, when everything just started going down and when just like everything started going horribly, I had already read it. I don't know why I was still so shocked by how it ends. By the way, I haven't read King Lear, so I do not know if it ends exactly like the original King Lear. So I can't even tell you, like, it's a Shakespeare retelling. I don't think it's a spoiler, like it's a retelling of one of Shakespeare's tragedies. I don't think it's a spoiler to tell you that there's a lot of people dead at the end. I don't know if all the people who died in this also died in King Lear, or if there's anyone who died in King Lear who survived in this one, but yeah, it's just amazing and gorgeous, and I love the writing. There's sentences in this that are so beautiful. I don't know if I can find it. There. These three sentences. Elia opened her mouth, hesitating as she stared at him, and the entire world paused with her. But the world cannot hold still for long. She breathed deeply. I accept. Like, I love the writing in this. I love the characters in this. Like, all the characters. Also, Gaela. Like, I don't know how I didn't see it the first time I read it, but like, I think I put this on some queer recommendation lists where I was like, I mean, technically there's not any explicitly queer characters in this, however the author is queer, so I want to put it on those lists. Gaela is some form of trans-masc genderqueer, and it's so obvious. I don't know why I didn't realize it on the first read. It's just, it's silly. But anyway, I love this. I can highly recommend it. I just want everyone to give this book the love that it deserves. And I know that there's so many reviews out there who are like, this wasn't for me because I expected way more action and this was a very slow book. And it's just like, yes, I know, but that doesn't make it a bad book though. So yeah, anyway. Then next for my not reviewed book, which is Human Sacrifices by Maria Fernanda Ampuero, which was my book actually for July for Read Around the World, but this book arrived too late, and actually I'm currently like consistently 1 month back because I also haven't finished my read for August yet. I'm currently in the middle of it. I haven't even found a read for September yet, and now I'm gonna be gone until the 17th of September, so who knows if I'll get around to that in September. But anyway, Human Sacrifices was my book for Ecuador, and it's a short story collection. It's like a kind of psychological horror type short story collection, although it's definitely not in a lot of parts like scary horror, more like unsettling horror type short stories. I'm not personally the biggest fan of short stories, but this sounded kind of interesting, but I don't know, for some reason I didn't quite connect, and I don't know if it was because of the stories or because of me not connecting to short stories generally, and so I decided to just not rate this book. Next we have my 1.75 star book, and I am so sad about this. I wanted to love this book so much, and that is A Dark and Drowning Tide by Alison Saft. This is labeled as gothic dark academia. I would say it is neither gothic nor dark academia because it doesn't really have the aesthetics of either, or like really properly the themes of either. So yeah, what is this about? This is about Lorelei, who is a scholar. She wanted to be a naturalist always, however, because she comes from a people whose name I currently forgot, which are very Jewish coded people that are basically relegated to living in a ghetto, and it's like the absolute exception that she was even allowed to study. She has become a folklorist. And she is now part of an expedition with some other people to find the Ursprung, which is the source or the supposed source of all magic. And if they find it, the reign of the current king, which is kind of unstable, will hopefully be stabilized and they can, you know, not have war or something. And so at the very beginning of the expedition, the leader of the expedition is murdered, and shit goes from there because obviously someone on the ship doesn't want them to reach the Ursprung. And yeah, I will probably film a full review. I'm not sure if I will manage before I leave on vacation. Hopefully, maybe, because otherwise I will forget tons of stuff. But basically, while there are some positive stuff about it, I personally, like, I saw other German-speaking readers not liking the use of German in the book, while I'm usually very, very, like, particular about how language is used in a book. I didn't mind it. I found it actually mostly interesting, and I also mostly enjoyed the use of like folklore in the book because Lorelei in a lot of situations relates those situations to specific stories and folklore. However, first of all, like, there's way too much happening. We have the search for the Ursprung, we have weird background that's not really clear, we have the murder mystery and the motivations of the different people, which aren't properly explained, but more so just told by Lorelei what she thinks the different motivations of the different people are. And then we also have the love story. This is also sapphic between Lorelei and Sylvia. There's so much going on, and the book, like, the arc was 260 pages. Was way too much. And then other stuff that I will go more into depth in my review is it was weirdly pro-colonial, which just bothered me. And then the framing around Lorelei as this Jewish coded character in relation to Sylvia, who is this, she's not blonde and blue-eyed, but she's like this silver-haired, blue, fairy-esque type character. And Lorelei portrays herself, even though she isn't, often as very like scheming and cowardly, and just like a lot of these very negative characteristics that sometimes also fall into negative Jewish stereotypes and propaganda. Meanwhile, Sylvia is this pure, honorable, idealistic type of person, and it just, I don't know. Something about it rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know if it rubbed me the wrong way because I'm uninformed or if there actually was something to it, but I'll get into more detail with all of that in my review, as I said. And so yeah, sadly this wasn't for me, although I woke up today and realized I forgot to cancel my September Illumicrate, which is this book, incidentally. Although I guess I don't mind because I did really want the box, because there's another puzzle in there and I kind of really want the puzzle, and there's some other apparently useful items possibly in there, and I don't know. The cover of the book was pretty anyway. So yeah, that's it for this book. Then next I have a book that I had heard before, I think last year when it first came out, but then I saw it at my bookstore and I still love the title, so I just had to pick it up. And that is Bored Gay Werewolf by Toni Santorella. This one is urban fantasy following Brian, who is in his 20s. He can't seem to get his life together, and also being a werewolf together. And then there's like a series of apparent wild animal murders that Brian might or might not have done, because he usually can't remember what happens when he's a werewolf. And so he's just at his lowest point. And that's when he meets Tyler, who is a very Andrew Tate alpha male type guy who also is a werewolf and who wants to help Brian get his life together. And so Brian kind of falls in with him, and that's not really that great. So yeah. Anyway, this book I gave 3.5 stars because like I didn't have a bad time with it. I had like a good enough time. It was like a kind of fun romp. However, it wasn't fun enough. Like with a title like this, that's as unserious as this, I would have expected more unseriousness in the book. However, the book in a lot of parts is not very funny, to be honest, and kind of like not hard-hitting, but like kind of really serious. And yeah, it just, I don't know, it felt like the expectations set by the title and the book didn't really fit together, and that's mainly the reason why I gave it 3.5 stars, because it didn't mesh in my brain. And so I went in with different expectations, which kind of made it less possible for me to fully enjoy what I was getting. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. But don't really have that much more to say about it, because it's urban fantasy. That's pretty much it. Then we have my 4-star, which is another arc, and that is The Land of the Living and the Dead by Shauna Lawless, which is the third and final book in the Gale Song series trilogy, which is a historical fantasy trilogy set around the turn of the century, between the 10th and the 11th century in Ireland, when Vikings and the old Irish were kind of just fighting for dominance over the island. And that is also the backdrop to a conflict between the descendants of the Tuatha De Danann. I never know how to pronounce it. Or, well, technically my brain knows how to pronounce it, but my mouth doesn't know how to pronounce it. It's the weirdest thing. And, well, the descendants and the Fomorians. And so you follow two main characters, Fola, who is a descendant, and Ahila, who is sent to spy on an Irish king, and then Gormla, who is the wife of a Viking king and a Fomorian. And so, yeah, that's kind of the setup of the story. I really enjoyed this third book. I won't really say too much. I did film a full series review, and it will be up probably next week or the week after that. I still need to edit it, and I hope I'll manage that before I leave again. And yeah, I really enjoy this series. Like, it's a solid 4-star series. It's certainly one of my currently favorite, like, historical fantasy type series, especially since it is more also on the historical side. Shauna Lawless usually has like a part in the back where she talks about the historical, like, inspirations and which parts she kept to as close to history as possible, which parts she changed, and so on. And so, yeah, I can definitely recommend it. Especially the book comes out on the 17th of September. We're reading the second book because we read the first book previously in my book club in September. So if you want to binge it, if you want to join, the link is down below. And then lastly, I have a book that I also have a review for, so I will also try to keep it shorter, and which is was an unexpected surprise, not gonna lie. And that is Long Live Evil by Sarah Rees Brennan, which is the first book in the, I think, Time of Iron is what it's called. And this is the one where I'm like, I'm not really sure if this necessarily counts as disability rep or not, because the main character is currently going through stage 4 cancer, chemo. I'm pretty sure actually that it's the same kind or a very similar kind of cancer to what I had. I believe it's also like a blood type cancer. It's either a blood cancer or a lymphoma. I'm not sure. I had lymphoma. I can't remember exactly what the character in this one had. However, at the very beginning of the story, our main character is kind of sent from our world to the world of her favorite book series that she incidentally can't remember a lot of, which is very relatable, not gonna lie, and into the body of the villain there. And in that body, she doesn't have cancer. However, her experiences with cancer still very much form the character. So it's like, it's kind of difficult to say. For me, it was like the cancer part of the character hit as incredibly relatable, hit me very hard. I have a full review of this. I think I talked a full 5 minutes about how much the cancer stuff meant to me and how much it's basically single-handedly at fault for me enjoying this book so much, because it does commit one of the cardinal sins that I absolutely do not like usually, which is bad exposition at the beginning of the story. However, at that point I was already so invested in the character that I was like, I don't care. I literally don't care. Aside from that, this is just really, really fun. It's really fun. I love the romances in this one. It doesn't take itself too seriously. Like, the villain is a very, like, the story that she's sent into is a very, very campy, almost like 80s classical fantasy type sword and sorcery story, where the villain is like the slut with the big tits. And it goes fully in on it, and it's amazing, and I loved it. Yeah, watch my review if you want to have like more coherent thoughts, although I'm not sure if I remember if I had more coherent thoughts. The review also is still not uploaded, but I did film it because I filmed a bunch of reviews recently. I was really good in the last week. And so with all of that, the space on my camera is running out anyway. So that was it for my August wrap up. Tell me in the comments down below, did you read any of the books that I read and what were your thoughts on them? Did I want to make you pick up any of the books? Are you gonna join our buddy read? And if you enjoyed this video, maybe think about giving me a thumbs up and also maybe subscribing. All the links to my social media as well as to my book club, as I said, which is of Queens, Witches and Valkyries, and where we read one adult fantasy book written by a woman or genderqueer person per month. Although this month actually we might read 2 to 3 books, not gonna lie, there's like a bunch of different buddy reads going on. It's my birthday month, okay? It's fine. Anyway, if you want to join us, all the links are down below, so go and check those out, and I hope I'll see you very soon. Bye!